it's 100 degrees outside. You walk into your house and within seconds, cool air hits your face. You don't even think about it. You just exist in a perfectly controlled temperature all day, every day for your entire life. Air conditioning has only existed for about 100 years. So for literally thousands of years before that, humans were stuck in the heat. No fans, no AC, nothing. So how did they not just collapse from it? Turns out they got incredibly creative. Let's start in ancient Rome. Romans had a 6-hour workday. Sunrise to noon, and that's it. Once the sun got brutal, they were done. Then they headed to the baths, which were basically Rome's version of a water park crossed with a spa. You'd start in a hot room, move to a lukewarm room, and finish in a freezing cold pool called the Frigidarium. And that pool wasn't just cold because of shade. It was chilled with actual snow and ice hauled all the way down from the Alps. But the real story gets even more ridiculous. Wealthy Romans didn't just enjoy snow, they obsessed over it. There were literal snow shops in Rome where regular people could buy mountain ice to cool their drinks. And one emperor, Elagabalus, took it to an absurd level. He had entire caravans of donkeys haul mountains of snow from the peaks all the way to his garden, just so he could look at it and stay cool whenever he wanted. An actual snow pile, recreated by hand in the middle of a Roman summer. The richest Romans went even further inside their own homes. They piped cold water directly through channels built into their walls. The water flowed in from the aqueducts, cooled the stone as it passed through, and made the whole room feel cooler. No electricity required. It's the same basic idea as modern radiant cooling systems, except they figured it out 2,000 years earlier. Now let's go to Persia. Around 400 BC, Persian engineers built something called a yakhchal. Picture a giant dome sticking up out of the desert, with most of its structure hidden underground. These things could actually make ice in the desert, in summer, no electricity. They used a clever mix of evaporative cooling, channels that funneled cold air downward, and walls thick enough to trap that cold air overnight. Water would freeze inside the structure, even when it was scorching outside, and that ice could last for months. Egypt had its own solution, and it's honestly genius. They built something called a mulkaf, a kind of wind-catching tower sticking up from the roof. The tower caught cooler air higher up where the breeze was stronger and funneled it straight down into the house. Hot air naturally rises and escapes through a different opening, so the whole house basically breathes on its own. No moving parts, no electricity, just smart airflow. China had a wild solution too, but only for the elite. The imperial court kept something called a dragon fur curtain, which sounds mythical, but was actually just the skin of giant pythons. They believed it had an almost magical cooling effect when hung in a room, and surrounded by it, the air supposedly felt as cool as if you were sitting in an air-conditioned space today. The catch? Python skin that large was incredibly rare, so only royalty ever got to use it. And China didn't stop there. As far back as 2100 BC, the imperial court had an entire government department dedicated to one job: collecting natural ice every winter and storing it for summer. They called it the Ice Administration. It employed 80 people whose entire career was making sure the emperor never got hot. Across nearly every hot climate on Earth, people landed on a surprisingly similar trick, even without ever talking to each other. Thick walls that absorbed heat slowly during the day and released it at night. Small windows to block direct sun. Central courtyards with pools of water that cooled the air through evaporation as it settled into the home overnight. And if all else failed, there was always the simplest trick of all: a damp cloth on your wrists and the sides of your neck. Those are pulse points, where blood vessels sit close to the skin, and cooling them down can cool your entire body surprisingly fast. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, Romans, and Indians all independently figured this out. Probably by accident, probably out of sheer desperation. You walk into a room and press a button, and cool air just appears. They built mountains, dug underground chambers, and reshaped entire buildings around the simple problem of being too hot. And somehow, with absolutely none of our technology, they figured it out anyway.